Hey guys, Brad Danger here, and real quick, this is the cheapest way into Porsche ownership, like real ownership. Yes, the 987.2 Cayman is the last car Porsche accidentally made way too good, and it's still selling for the price of a loaded Honda Accord. So today I'm going to tell you exactly why this specific Porsche with its specific engine, with this specific transmission, is the best entry point into real sports car ownership that currently exists. No asterisks, no for the money, the actual answer. Like, subscribe so we can hit 2 mil by the end of the year, and let's go. Let's start with a number that should not be true. A base 987.2 Cayman with a 6-speed manual is trading for high teens to low 30s depending on mileage and condition. The S with the bigger engine sits a notch above that. Mid 30s to 40s for a clean one. Real transactions, verified sales from classic.com, no eBay fantasy pricing, and they should not exist. Every car around it has already moved. Air-cooled 911's gone into another tax bracket. 997 manuals climbing every single year. The next generation of the 981 holding firm above it. And the 987.2 just sits there in this used car listing like nobody told it what it actually was. And here is why. Porsche fixed the scary part in 2009. The old engines used something called an intermediate shaft to drive the camshafts, and the shaft's bearing was famous for failing and taking the whole engine with it. The 987.2 got a completely new engine architecture. No intermediate shaft, no bearing to fail. That single design change is why this generation trades at a real premium over the earlier cars, and it's also why the horror stories you've read online mostly belong to the Porsche that isn't this one. Part of the pricing gap, well, it's timing. This car lives in an awkward middle ground, too new to be treated like a classic, too old to be anyone's idea of the latest thing, not rare enough to make headlines, not flashy enough to get flexed on Instagram. Every incentive that normally drives a car's price up is missing here, and none of that has anything to do with how good the car actually is. That gap between reputation and reality is exactly where the smart money always shops. The other part is that the people who already own one aren't selling. You don't see a wave of these hitting the markets from owners cashing out. You see owners keeping them for years, maintaining them properly, upgrading the small stuff instead of trading up. That's not how people treat a car they consider disposable. That's how they treat a car that they're genuinely attached to. And a market where the good examples keep getting held back instead of flipped is a market that's quietly running out of supply before the demand catches up to notice. That is the persona of this car in one line. It's the Porsche that got the scary reputation fixed and never got the memo that it should cost more for it. And Auto Tempest is how you actually go find one of these without spending 3 weeks refreshing 11 different websites. It pulls every listing on the market into one search, and the link is pinned in the first comment. Use it before you use anything else. Hey guys, real quick, the giveaway for the Shelby and Supra in the $100,000 has ended, and well, the winners are being picked right now, but we're coming back bigger and badder and better. So click the link in the pinned first comment, because like Rocky, who won the GTR, like Greg, who won the 100K, you can sign up to be notified and get 100 free entries once it goes live. So click the link down below, go put in your email, and I can't wait to show you what we have cooking. All right, back to the show. Okay, now let's talk about why it drives the way that it does. Because this is the part that actually matters. The engine, it sits behind you. Yes, ahead of the rear axle. Mid-engine layout, that is the entire secret. Weight centered in the middle of the car instead of hanging off the nose or the tail means that car rotates the way physics wants it to, not the way a computer has to correct for. It's the same reason a pendulum swings smoother when the weight sits in the middle of the string instead of on one end. You don't need traction control working overtime to save you. The chassis is already balanced before electronics get involved. Then there is the steering, and this is the thing you cannot get anymore at any price with Porsche. Hydraulic, no electric, actual fluid pressure translating what the front tires are doing directly into your hands. And it feels so good, brother. You feel the grip building through a corner. You feel the road surface change. The wheel isn't just pointing the car, it's reporting back. The generation right after this one switched to electric steering, and the cars got faster and sharper on paper and quieter into your hands. This is the last one that still talks to you religiously. Now the engine matches that honestly. Naturally aspirated flat six, no turbo, no lag, no torque spike waiting for you to surprise you. The base car makes 265 horses out of the 296. The S bumps that to 321 with direct injection added on. Neither number sounds huge this year, but that's the point. You get to use everything the engine has without breaking laws or breaking your neck. You live in the upper half of the rev range because the car actually rewards you for being there instead of already doing felony speeds by second gear. If the standard car isn't enough, Porsche built exactly one nastier version of this chassis, the Cayman R, built for 2011 and 2012 only. Same 3.4 liter engine as the S with 10 more horsepower, but 121 pounds lighter thanks to aluminum doors, lighter seats, and deleting things like air conditioning and a radio. Fewer than 2,000 were ever built, and it's the closest thing to a factory race car that platform ever got, and it trades at real premiums over the S because of it. If you find a clean manual R for the same money as a nice S, you buy the R and you don't think twice. Reliability is the other half of why this car works as a daily reality and not just a weekend toy. Owners describe this generation the same way, over and over. Solid, boringly dependable for a Porsche. You're not going to do a startup ritual and pray. You're going to turn the key and you're going to go to work or hit that back road. That's not the reputation people assume a used Porsche comes with. And that gap between the reputation and the reality is exactly why the pricing hasn't caught up yet. It's also just usable in a way that low, wide, modern performance cars aren't. It has good visibility, sensible ergonomics, a cabin from an era when a button did one thing and did it forever. No screen throwing an error at you on a cold morning. You climb in and drive instead of climbing in and troubleshooting. Let's kill the other myth while we're here because it comes up every single time this car gets mentioned. Bore scoring. It's a real thing that can happen to these flat sixes over a long enough time. It's exactly what happened to my 996 C4S. And it's also a real thing that can happen to basically any engine over a long enough time. That's called wear. The pattern behind the actual failures is almost always the same. Short trips, cold starts, long stretches sitting instead of running. An engine that gets driven properly and maintained on schedule is not the engine you need to worry about. The car that sits in a garage all winter and gets babied for 800 miles a year is the one that earns a bad reputation through neglect and not through bad engineering. And the manual gearbox isn't a nostalgia tax here. It's the whole point of the car. This chassis was tuned around a driver making decisions, choosing the gear, rev matching the downshift, feeling the clutch bite instead of watching a paddle do the thinking for you. The PDK version of this car is quicker in a straight line and easier to live with in traffic, and it will never once make you feel like you did something. The manual is slower on paper and completely different in your hands, and on a car built around feel instead of lap times, that's not a compromise. That's the correct spec, dare I say ideal spec. And it looks the part without begging for attention. Long hood, tight cabin, the spoiler that rises out of the deck lid at speed like a car that is announcing itself. People compare the silhouette to Porsche's much more expensive Halo cars, and they're not exaggerating by much. It reads as far more expensive than the numbers on the title. Now, if you genuinely cannot live without a convertible, the 987.2 Boxster shares this exact platform, this exact steering, and nearly this exact engine, minus a small horsepower deficit and some rear end rigidity. Same recipe, open top, similar money. It's not a downgrade. It's a different answer to a different question. But if you want a stiffer chassis and the car that was built to be driven hard without a fabric roof between you and the elements, the Cayman is the sharper tool. Now, cars like this don't stay cheap because they're bad. They stay cheap because nobody's told them the story yet. First, the enthusiasts quietly buy them, then the good ones stop showing up for sale. Then everybody else notices at once and acts like they knew the whole time. Right now, today, this car is still sitting in that first window, the window where the math hasn't caught up to the experience. So, I'm now looking for a 987.2 Cayman or Boxster because I like the open air going topless feel. Let me know, is this the most underappreciated Porsche out there right now? In the comments below. I'm Brad Danger. This is Ideal. Like, subscribe so we hit 2 mil by the end of the year. Check out some of these Ideal vids over here and promise me one thing. Keep living the ideal lifestyle.